Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Matt Del Vecchio, specializing in free retirement home search and senior transition support.
And I'm Corey Sirota, clinical social worker and psychotherapist. I specialize in grief and loss. And I'm so glad, Matt, that I made it in today.
You just made it.
I just made it under the wire because I came back from doing something really nice. I went to support a friend who opened up her own restaurant called Wicked Pissa Chowder. In New Hampshire, she's making and selling clam chowder. It was quite delish.
Well, talk about New England, just outside of Boston. You said about a half an hour, New England clam chowder. Well, talk about opening up the right place and the right food. So, yeah, you just made it in. You had decent traffic.
So glad to be here.
And you had some good chowder, I take it.
Oh, the best. They don't ship to Canada yet, but yet.
You're working on it.
Yeah.
All right. As mentioned just before news, Corey, we are about to start Caregiver Week, which is the first week of November. And as a result, Life Unrehearsed is going to embark on a 3-part caregiving series. This is part number 1. We're very excited about this because there are many caregivers in this, not just in Montreal, but right around the world.
You got that right, Matt. Caregiving affects many, many, many Canadians. In fact, there's a good chance that you have either been a caregiver, you will be a caregiver, or you know someone that will be a caregiver sometime in the future. It's inevitable. And when we talk about caregiving, just to be clear, it could be anything from cooking, cleaning, paying bills, and taking a loved one to a doctor's appointment, or what might be construed as the heavier tasks, such as looking after someone with a severe mobility issue or cognitive impairments, such as Alzheimer's. So who do you turn to who do you turn to for help? Well, thankfully, someone like Mark Stolow, who is a social entrepreneur, he's a change maker, and he has created the website entitled Huddol. He's the CEO of Huddol. When I think of Huddle, I think of the football team, so I think it's it's a very interesting term. I think it's great.
Good thought.
And he's committed to creating spaces that empower caregivers to collaborate and to co-create real solutions to health and wellness challenges. So welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Mark.
Thanks.
I've got to start off, obviously, I'm saying that's what I think of when I think of Huddle as a football team. So let's talk about what is Huddle.
Yeah, that's a perfect metaphor, actually, because what we do is we use the power of community to help caregivers navigate, their concerns about their loved ones, their friends, as they try to figure out the landscape of care, but at the same time making sure that they're taking care of themselves. So the community really has their back. So what Huddle does is it builds that community around them. So whether it's people who have been through the experience, who are like them, who can understand and empathize with that experience, or a network of professionals, people like you and Matt who bring expertise inside of the community. So really you can meet your peers, or you can meet a huge network of professionals as well.
So essentially, it's all online, and if you're online, a caregiver, whether you're a professional or an actual caregiver, or you're worried about your mom, dad, your child, you can go on to Huddol, which is HUDDOL.
Yeah,
right?
Spelt a little differently. HUDDOL.com. Yeah.
And you just search away for whatever your issues or concerns are. Is that correct?
Yeah, we start by trying to get to know you a little bit, and the idea is that our network gets increasingly smart at introducing you to people who can be of support. So you can join communities, and we have almost 200 communities on Huddol talking about everything related to the care experience, to health and wellness. So people who are trying to practice better health and wellness while they're providing care.
But just on that note, and as you know, Mark, I'm very proud to have a community on Huddol for seniors in transition and those that are considering to move into residences, have to sell their home and declutter. So that's just one little community amongst hundreds of communities. So you have a topic, you've got it covered in Huddol.
Yeah, I mean, the network's growing all the time. So, we have almost 1,000 healthcare professionals who cover a range of different topics. So, yours is a good example talking about transition support. But as we know, in transition support, you also got to be thinking about legal concerns. You've got to be thinking about family dynamics and potential conflicts that arise when you're making choices about long-term care. So the idea with Huddol is how do we bring all those different people around you to kind of support you in that decision-making?
So I always like to go back and ask you what really motivated you to create such a site? Like, are there that many Canadians that are considered caregivers?
Yeah, I mean, the last data we have, but it traces back to 2016, so it's a bit dated, is about 8 million Canadians. But that number is like massively on the rise. rise because the Canadian population is getting older. As people get older, they need more care. Now, we address caregivers across the lifespan, but the aging of the population means more and more adults, spouses are going to be providing care. So this caregiver reality is something that, is going to touch more and more lives.
That's Mark Stolow, CEO of Huddol, here on Life Unrehearsed. Huddol being an innovative online community for caregivers that connects you to the right people at the right time in your health journey. Matt and Corey talking to Mark. Let's continue along with caregivers, and you must see it all the time. What are some of the challenges that caregivers would face?
Yeah, I mean, they're incredibly varied, and it depends on your network of supports. It depends on how familiar you are with the kind of the disease that you're dealing with, but more often than not, people have very little knowledge of the disease. So you have challenges around understanding, what does this mean? What does the diagnosis mean? What treatments are available? What can I expect for the future? So there's a ton of unknowns. That creates a lot of stress and anxiety, right? You just don't know what the future holds anymore. People have to shift and change their lives to adapt to this new reality. That has a resonating impact on the family. And then over time, it starts to take a toll on the caregiver themselves, because as the care intensifies, so does that pressure and the stress and the anxiety on the caregiver.
So what are some of the traditional resources that that are out there for caregivers, and how do they differ from what's on Huddol?
Yeah, so Huddol is, what we're trying to do with Huddol is to build an ecosystem of resources. So I want caregivers to be able to come to Huddol and, learn about all the resources that are available. So it's like a one-stop community where you can get to know all the things that are happening around you, whether it's the people, the places, the resources, public and private, that can provide you the best support. So the most important thing is that caregivers need to know is there are resources. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, oftentimes they have to be the first ones to ask for help. Because it's not obvious for people to say, hey, do you need a hand as well? And are you managing with this? So first things first is we try to advocate for caregivers to say it's all right to ask for help. No one expects that you're going to be able to take on all of this all of the time. It's a lot for one person to take on themselves. So there are resources out there. People shouldn't be afraid to ask.
It's Mark Stolow, CEO of Huddol.
Can't separate me from Huddol.
Oh, yeah.
You're intertwined, Mark. Really an innovative online community. Can you just give some real examples of going on the Huddol site and it's actually helped caregivers, which is the goal?
Yeah, I mean, we have so many different kinds of caregivers on Huddol. So, we've recently had someone who was looking for information about, intermediary supports when you're dealing with a parent who has Alzheimer's. So in that situation, we have the Alzheimer's Society of Montreal that's providing support inside the platform, the Federation of Quebec Alzheimer's Societies that's providing support. Then we had a couple of other caregivers who have been through the experience who shared their perspective on transitioning to assisted care. So the idea with Huddol is it's a massive brain trust. It's not just about the professionals and the community groups. It's also about the people who have been there, done that. That's the richness of Huddol.
I imagine you've experienced a lot of people you've come across a lot of people that have a caregiver stress. You mentioned it a little bit earlier. What are some of the triggers that would lead to caregiver stress?
What we see with caregiver stress is it's cumulative. It's a silent and slow buildup, and most caregivers don't notice it. So life starts to change. Conflicts with work start to happen. Financial responsibilities and costs start to increase. Withdrawal from friends and family over time because you have less time to give to people. So all of these things start to pile up, and then what happens is, unfortunately, is people hit a wall. But they don't see the wall coming. It just kind of appears in front of them. So what we're really trying to do is to make sure caregivers don't hit that wall. Now, that's a hard thing to convince someone that a wall's around the corner, but we're really trying to talk to people today about, hey, if you're in a caregiving situation and you're starting to feel the effects of being in if you're dealing with someone who has a chronic health issue, unfortunately, those feelings might start to get worse and intensify with time.
We're going to expand on that, Mark. When you go on Huddol, you're able to alleviate some of that stress. You're able to get some answers. As you mentioned, though, caregiver stress, Corey, rightly so, is a major issue, and there are times where you reach the breaking point.
Yeah.
And we're going to head out for a little bit of a traffic update, but we want to hear back from you for those caregivers that you might not even know you're in it, but certainly there are friends, relatives that might see that you're at the breaking point, what we can do about that. But first, let's head to the CJAD Traffic Center with Mark Stolow.
Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.
Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corey Sirota with Matt Delvecchio, and we are talking about caregiving with CEO Mark Stolow of Huddol, an innovative online community for caregivers that connects you to the right people at the right time in your health journey. Right before we went to traffic, we asked Mark the question, how do you know or can you identify when a caregiver is reaching their breaking point?
Yeah, that's a really tough thing to figure out because everyone's situation is unique. I think what I could say to caregivers who feel like they might be, hitting that burnout point is because usually people start to feel overwhelmed, right? I mean, the number of things going on simultaneously. The best advice I could give them is think about the one thing you could do right now that would make everything else a lot easier. It's easy to kind of think about the 10 different roads that you need to walk down now, right. But really there's probably just one that's going to start unhooking things a little bit, just relieving some of that stress, whether it's talking to a friend about what's going on, seeking help from another family member, certainly connecting to a community like Huddle is an option for some people as a first starting point. So the feeling of like this is a massive mountain and I have to take all this on at the same time is usually what overwhelms caregivers. So start with that one thing.
Yeah, very smart. Chip away at it. Just do one thing. It'll give you a sense of relief as well, a little less overwhelming. When it becomes that mountain, then you start making irrational decisions as well. So chip away at it one at a time.
Yeah,
very smart.
How do you take down an elephant? One bite at a time. And sometimes caregiving can feel like an elephant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we need to talk a little bit more about this community, Huddle.
Sure.
So I'm listening. I'm interested. I want to recommend it to a friend who might need it. So how do I join Huddle? And again, just to repeat, it's HUDDOL. What do I do to join?
We try to make it as easy as possible because the last thing we want to do with caregivers is make anything tough because a lot of things are already tough. So you go to huddle.com. You register. All the information that you share with us is confidential. We try to keep the information really simple. I mean, it is a community that's gated, which means you have to register, and we do that in a way to protect the members in the community. And then really once you log on with your email, you create a password, you're right into the community. And then we start working with you to build your network. It's as easy as that.
That's Mark Stolow, CEO of Huddle, an online community for caregivers, amongst many other services that they offer. This community it can be, I guess, a bit overwhelming and sounds like it offers a lot. So how much does it cost?
Yeah, people ask me that. How much does it cost to do all this? It's free for caregivers. It will always be free for caregivers. The goal is in no way, shape, or form to add any more financial pressures on the lives of caregivers. So we really built the community to support them through and through. So caregivers don't have to worry about taking on any more expenses when they come to Huddle.
Fantastic. And do you have to be part of an organization, an association? If it's just an individual caregiver, can anyone join?
Anyone can join. I mean, the community is actually even growing as well. So we have a massive caregiver community. We're now also serving the broader population who are dealing with their own health concerns. So we have a growing community of people who are dealing with health issues as well. So you don't have to have a specific affiliation. You don't need a CAA card. You don't need to belong to any specific entity. You can just join as an individual.
What about if you're someone like me who's technologically challenged and this is a great service and a resource, but I'm not really so comfortable or great with going online?
Yeah, so we tried to make Huddle as intuitive and simple as possible, number one. There's also a lot of support inside of Huddle. So we have community managers who move throughout the community to provide support to people who have questions. Actually, the first thing that happens when you come to Huddle is our community support people say, if there's anything you need, just let us know. So that's really a big priority for us when people come into the community, make sure they can get oriented. Because, look, there's a lot of stuff going on inside of Huddle, but we help you kind of take it one step at a time.
And you have a very important screening event for caregivers coming up. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so in celebration of Caregivers Week, we're working with a network of partners on a film screening event of a documentary film, incredibly powerful documentary film called The Caregivers Club. And it profiles 4 caregivers who are caring for loved ones with Alzheimer's. And we wanted to make sure that caregivers have access. So we've tried to make a lot of free tickets available to caregivers. So caregivers who want to get access to this film screening event at Cinéma du Parc on November 8th, it starts at 5 o'clock. They can email us at hello@huddle.com. And we'll make sure to give them promotional codes so they can get access to free tickets. Because we really want to see a lot of caregivers
that's so great.
Yeah.
If French or English?
The movie is in English, and we're subtitling it in French, so we can make sure that we make it as accessible as possible.
That is so fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark. I'm also on Huddle. I mentioned it earlier. I'm actually in a grief support what would it be called?
Community.
Yeah, sure.
And it's been nice to make those connections that I would have otherwise not done.
Appreciate that.
So I really do encourage people to check it out. How do people find you or find Huddol?
Easiest way is huddle.com, huddol.com. And for the film screening for tickets, hello@huddle.com. Just send us an email. We'll get back to you.
Mark, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. Next week on Life Unrehearsed, join us as we have part 2 of our Caregiver series, when we're going to be talking with the inspirational Claire Webster about navigating the caregiver journey.
And we'll also have, when it comes to marketing yourself or your business, how do you stand out from the crowd? Well, we're very happy to have PR expert Geeta Nadkarni. She is amazing. Corey, you've heard her talk,
yes.
And she'll show us how to stand out from the crowd. And you can catch us every Sunday at 4 p.m. on Life Unrehearsed.